telephone support lines. Thank you.
恢复
Government bills. This council resumes the second reading debate on the Road Traffic Amendment Autonomous Vehicles Bill 2022. Mr. Frankie Yik, Chairman of the Bills Committee, will first address the council on the committee's report. Mr. Frankie Yik. Mr. President, as Chairman of the Bills Committee on Road Traffic Amendment Autonomous Vehicles Bill 2022, I deliver this report to the Council. The bill seeks to amend the Road Traffic Ordinance CAP 374 to introduce a flexible regulatory regime to facilitate the research, trial, and application of autonomous vehicles or AVs in Hong Kong. The Bills Committee has held 2 meetings with the administration to examine the bill and invited written submissions from the public. Members generally support amending the ordinance to provide for the definition, pilot use, pilot regulation, and code of practice for AVs. Members also note that the bill empowers the Secretary to make the pilot regulation and change the effect of some of the existing provisions. Expressing concern that the development progress of AVs in Hong Kong is lagging behind the mainland cities like Shanghai and Shenzhen, some members consider that the administration should draw on the experience of these cities in the development of autonomous driving technology and actively engage in more exchanges with the local governments and relevant organizations, especially in promoting the development of vehicle-to-everything V2X technology, so as to further facilitate autonomous driving and V2X connectivity in the Greater Bay Area. Given that AV trials are currently conducted within designated sites or areas, some members consider that the trials are too restrictive and does not allow for comprehensive testing of AVs in terms of different road conditions, weather conditions, interaction with other vehicles, etc. Some members suggest that the government should set up designated areas, such as in the Northern Metropolis under planning, for the wider testing and application of autonomous driving technology in small areas on an early pilot implementation basis, and finalize the relevant details in the planning of the areas concerned. In response to members' views, the administration has pointed out that the government has been promoting the development of autonomous driving technology through various measures and providing funding support for relevant research projects through the Innovation Technology Fund and the Smart Transport Fund. The government will continue to keep in view the latest development of the industry and maintain close communication and cooperation with the mainland to achieve V2X connectivity with the mainland. As for setting up designated areas for conducting AV trials, the government will actively consider the suggestion. The proposed Section 138 of the bill empowers the Secretary to regulate the carrying out of AV schemes on a pilot basis by making the pilot regulation. Under the proposed Section 143, the pilot regulation may provide for matters such as the insurance relating to AVs, the maintenance of data, and handling of accidents. A member engaged in the insurance industry has pointed out that if an AV is to be tested or used on roads, the AV concerned must have a valid third-party risks insurance policy to provide protection against personal injury or property damage that may arise out of the use of the AV. As the relevant data on the use of AVs on roads are still not available for reference, the consideration of risk factors of AVs will be very different from that of conventional vehicles. However, the administration has not yet communicated with the industry on the issue of underwriting third-party risks insurance policies, which is a cause of concern to the industry. With reference to overseas legislation, the legal advisor to the Bills Committee has inquired with the administration about why the insurance arrangements in respect of AV trials are not provided for the bill. Members have inquired whether the data collected from relevant AV schemes can be used commercially in order to encourage more investors to participate in the research and development of the technologies, as well as the reporting and handling of accidents that may arise from AV systems. The administration has explained that the existing vehicle registration and licensing system will equally apply to AVs. On this premise, the existing legal liability of registered owners and licensees stipulated under various ordinances, including the requirement to purchase insurance for licensed vehicles, will also apply in the case of AVs. The proposed Section 143D of the bill also provides that the pilot regulation may provide for the protection of third parties against risks of personal injury or property damage arising out of the use of AVs. In addition, as the requirement for vehicle data recording is relatively technical, the administration considers it more appropriate to set out the provisions in the pilot regulation. The administration has also pointed out that before implementing the insurance-related matters in the pilot regulation, it will certainly communicate fully with the relevant trades to enable them to understand the relevant details of AV schemes so as to allay their concerns. On members' suggestion, the government has met with the Hong Kong Federation of Insurers and representatives of the automobile sector and the public light buses trades in February 2023 to introduce in detail the contents of the bill and the relevant insurance arrangements, and has further consulted the trades in this regard. As regards the data collected from AVs, the Transport Department will ensure that the data and records of AVs are properly maintained by the pilot participants in accordance with the requirements of the pilot regulation to be made in the future. The Transport Department will continue to discuss with the Technical Advisory Committee on the application of autonomous vehicle technologies in Hong Kong on how to make wider use of the data of AVs to promote the development of the relevant technologies. As for the reporting and investigation of accidents involving AVs, the pilot regulation will clearly set out the relevant requirements, and the Transport Department will give top priority to ensuring safety when vetting and approving applications for pilot licenses. In response to members' inquiry on how to enhance the safety of AVs when they are being used on roads, the administration has advised that the Transport Department will require the display of a unique identification on an AV to enable other road users to clearly identify the vehicle concerned as an AV. In drawing up the identification requirements, the Transport Department will consult the police to ensure that the identification can effectively assist the police in law enforcement. Relevant conditions will also be set according to the unique situation of individual trial and use of the AVs to ensure the safety of other road users. Members are gravely concerned that autonomous driving technology will reach the level of highly automated driving or even fully automated driving. That means levels 4 and 5 of driving automation, such that the backup operator only takes control of the vehicle if necessary, or one operator takes control of multiple vehicles at the same time, or multiple operators take control of one or more vehicles on a shift or rotation basis. Members have inquired how the legal liabilities can be determined and how the relevant law enforcement agencies can effectively enforce the law in the event of an incident or an accident involving an AV. The administration has explained that although the mode of operating and driving an AV is different from that of a conventional vehicle, the definition of driver in Section 2 of the Road Traffic Ordinance, Cap. 374, still applies to the operator of an AV who is inside or near an AV or at the remote control room. When operating an AV, these persons should also bear the same legal liability as the existing driver under the relevant ordinances. To prepare for the future scenario where an AV may not require a human operator at all, the proposed Section 141, subsection 1 of the bill provides that the pilot regulation may provide for how a reference to a driver in any provision of any ordinance is to be interpreted for an AV. On law enforcement, the administration plans to require as a condition of the issuance of a pilot license that the pilot proprietor submit the information of the designated backup operator for each of the AV for vetting. It also plans to require, when making the pilot regulation, that each pilot AV be equipped with a journey recorder with detailed records of relevant journey data, operation records, and video footages. The pilot proprietor will also be required to provide such records upon request by the Commissioner or any authorized persons. In the event of an incident, the law enforcement agencies may use these records to trace the cause of the incident and determine the liability. Members note that the proposed new Section 142(1), 142(3), and 146(1) in the bill seek to empower the Secretary to, by means of the pilot regulation, exempt a pilot matter from any legislative provision, disapply a legal requirement in relation to a pilot matter, or enable the application of a provision in relation to a pilot matter with modifications, collectively referred to as disapplication provisions. Members have inquired about the justifications for conferring the relevant powers and the reasons for proposing to empower the Commissioner to, by administrative means, make an application or disapplication notice which may disapply the provisions and would not be subject to the scrutiny of LegCo. The administration has explained that AV technology is rapidly evolving, and yet there is no universal standard governing the use of AVs at this stage, and it is not practicable to codify all the detailed technical and operational requirements into statute law. It is therefore necessary to introduce into the bill the power for the Secretary and the Commissioner, under different circumstances, to disapply legislative provisions in order to provide a flexible regulatory regime and to facilitate attaining the object of researching into, testing, and evaluating AV technology. The proposed new sections contain clear parameters on the Commissioner's exercise of such power, including that the Commissioner needs to ensure that the disapplication of a traffic provision will not undermine the safety of the pilot matter. The administration foresees that most disapplications made by the Commissioner would be relevant to highly technical and case-specific matters. In response to a question on how to assist the public in knowing that the Commissioner has made a disapplication notice and in understanding and complying with the amendments in such notice, the administration has advised that the proposed Section 149 of the bill provides that a disapplication notice made by the Commissioner in relation to the relevant disapplication must be published on the website of the Transport Department. As regards issues relating to the future testing and application of AVs, the administration will consolidate the relevant information and progress of work, including the implementation of these applications, and report to the LegCo panel on transport as appropriate. Members have no objection to the technical and drafting amendments to the bill proposed by the administration. The administration or the Bills Committee will not be moving any amendment to the bill. Mr. President, I'd like to offer my views on the bill. In 2017, we started the trial of autonomous vehicles in Hong Kong. However, the trials only took place after obtaining a moving permit. The trial did not allow the AVs to run on the roads of Hong Kong, so the potential is limited. In order to develop Hong Kong into a smart city, we need to formulate a policy framework with laws and regulations supporting the development. The Liberal Party supports this bill to introduce a regulatory regime for autonomous vehicles. The code of practice will be promulgated such that different classes of autonomous vehicles will be allowed to conduct trials on the roads of Hong Kong so as to prepare for the wider use in the future. Nowadays, instead of having mechanical components, cars or vehicles are run on electricity. This is the global trend, and many cities around the world are conducting autonomous driving technologies. According to a report, 53 cities in the world are now developing autonomous vehicle driving technology. In Singapore, back in 2015, they started conducting trials on the use of AVs relating to taxis and other kinds of public transport. In South Korea, in Seoul of South Korea, and California in the United States, AVs are already allowed to carry passengers with reward on a limited scale. In the mainland, the development is very rapid. Last year in Shenzhen, the legal framework was put in place in relation to the regulation of smart and autonomous vehicles. Under this framework, driverless vehicles are allowed to take passengers on board within the designated area. And there are also regulations relating to the legal liability in the event of incidents or accidents. We really need to catch up. In order to allow the trial of different classes of AVs, the administration has proposed the introduction of a pilot scheme. The applicant will have to apply for an AV certificate for each of the AV under a pilot scheme, and also a pilot license for the whole scheme. For vehicles to be rented or to carry passengers with reward, the relevant documents will also have to be applied for. This is a reasonable arrangement. However, the government should make sure that for passengers carrying vehicles for reward, they should be licensed so as to combat the abuse of the system in which some vehicles will be illegally used for carrying passengers for reward. For conventional vehicles, legal liability is to be borne by the driver on board the vehicle. For AVs, however, the operators will be held liable. He may be outside of the vehicle, and in the event of an accident, multiple vehicles or up to 100 vehicles may be involved. Does it mean that the operator concerned will be liable for the 100 vehicles in the event of an accident? What happens if the system is disrupted by a hacker? In the event of these incidents, does it mean that there will be insurance coverage before claims are made by the manufacturers and the relevant parties? If the legal liability is not defined clearly, drivers may be or operators may be sent to prison, and the interests of victims may be at stake. The government should clarify the legal responsibilities concerned, because otherwise this will hamper the development of commercial AVs. The Liberal Party supports the development of autonomous driving technologies. According to the Transport Department statistics, the major cause of traffic accidents is human errors, such as fatigue of drivers, inattentive driving. Autonomous driving depends on technologies. So fatigue, inattentive driving can be addressed. There are also other safety devices on board the AVs that can help eradicate human errors and reduce traffic accidents. This can also help lower insurance premiums. According to overseas experience, with the rapid development of AV technologies, the level of safety has been enhanced, and insurers will have a drop in their income from premiums. AVs also rely on the operation of computing systems. AVs can make use of big data so as to avoid detours and choosing the best route to go by, and this can help address traffic congestion and improve traffic management. We're now at the teething stage of AV technologies. Many drivers are keen on popularization of AV technologies. With a drop in the city's birth rate, we have a shrinking workforce. The unemployment rate is now standing at 3%. We have a full employment situation. There is a manpower crunch in different industries. We are short of cooks, drivers, and in fact, in the private sector, we now see the use of robots in restaurants and in delivery services. We should expedite the development of AV technologies to address manpower shortage. We also need supporting measures and facilities for the development of AVs, such as a stable communication network to support vehicle-to-everything technology, or V2X, and also infrastructure facilities, pedestrian facilities. They should be properly designed to dovetail with AV technologies so as to enhance transport efficiency and safety. With integration with the mainland, these AVs may also run across the boundary in the mainland. We must not neglect the development of V2X technology and connectivity with the mainland. For AVs on trial on the roads of Hong Kong, they should be properly labeled so as to allow identification by other road users so that they may stay vigilant. Under the pilot scheme, the Commissioner can, by administrative means, vet the applications on a case-by-case basis. And there are also a limited number of PLB licenses. In order to facilitate the implementation of a pilot scheme for the trial of AVs, the Commissioner can approve more PLB licenses for the trial of AVs. According to the administration, the Commissioner will consult the trade before granting the licenses. I urge the administration to be cautious because the PLB trade is now facing a lot of difficulties. If more licenses are granted for AV PLBs, and if these AV PLBs are allowed to carry passengers with a reward, this will hamper the interests of the PLB trade. They will be in dire straits. It is believed at the moment that close to 200 PLBs are now facing a hardship. They don't have income. They're short of drivers. The government should be cautious. Apart from public light buses, we also need to consider other forms of public transport. Even if there is not a limited number of licenses under the framework, the administration should still be cautious in granting licenses, such that these AV trials will not cause disruption to the balance of the industry. I support the resumption of the second reading of the bill.
Mr. Chen Pui-Lang. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I speak in support of the Road Traffic Amendment Autonomous Vehicles Bill 2022. AVs is the world trend, and different countries in the world are conducting different trials. Several years ago, the government released the Hong Kong Smart City Blueprint and also the Smart Mobility Roadmap, suggesting that AV trials should be conducted in Hong Kong. And for Smart City Blueprint 2.0 also mentions that we should develop V2X so that we can have more trials on AVs in Hong Kong roads. Although Hong Kong has a roadmap, but then Hong Kong's regulations are hampering the development of AVs. Right now, if we want to operate AVs on any roads, we must have the movement permits first, and the Commissioner of Transport must approve for such operations, and he may impose additional conditions. But the MPs comes with restrictions because it is issued under the Road Traffic Registration and Licensing of Vehicles Regulations, which is Cap 37, and this regulation aims at regulating conventional vehicles and not AVs, and also qualified drivers must operate the vehicles. So that hampers the trials of AVs in Hong Kong. Recently, the AV technology has developed in leaps and bounds, and many cities in the mainland are carrying out trials on AVs. We must remove barriers for trials on AVs. We must allow AVs to be tried on Hong Kong roads so that we can gather sufficient data to test the feasibility and the viability of software. And we must try out these AVs so that we can really have more AVs on the road used in Hong Kong. Well, it brings a lot of benefits to Hong Kong. We strive to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, and in 2035, we aim to reduce by half our carbon emissions. Now, the AVs can reduce green gas emission. Then we can transform ourselves into a green society. We can reduce carbon emissions. And also, we are lacking commercial drivers, and the drivers are aging. According to the TD's statistics, those aged over 70, the drivers over aged 70 has increased by 80% in 5 years. And aged drivers can easily develop fatigue, undermining road safety. In the past 2 years, taxi drivers aged over 70 have been involved in over 410 accidents, and AVs can enhance road safety and reduce car accidents caused by man-made errors. In an aging society in Hong Kong, AVs can ease the labor shortage and provide more convenient transport for Hong Kong people. Madam Deputy, I agree to the amendment this time, and that is there should be a regulatory regime for AV's use, specified use and trials, so that AVs can be more extensively used in Hong Kong. I'd also raise several points of concern and suggestions. First, in relation to insurance for AVs, whether it's conventional vehicles or AVs, there are certain risks, and insurance is indispensable. But then AVs are still something new, and the risk considerations, underwriting considerations are different from those of conventional vehicles. Right now, the insurance sector doesn't have any detailed information to make an assessment, so we might not be able to shoulder the very great risks. And when AVs are tested and they are being put into commercial use, in the event of an accident, the insurance sector will not be able to ascertain their liability. Now, we're conducting just small trials of AVs in Hong Kong. The government must talk immediately to the insurance sector to understand our suggestions and try to share whatever data it has with the sector so that the sector can make early preparation and provide for insurance coverage for AVs. Second point of concern about connectivity or compatibility between Hong Kong and the mainland. And that has to do with the actual use of AVs. It might sound distant, but then as we integrate more into the GBA, well, this will be the trend, and that is there will be AVs coming to Hong Kong from the mainland and vice versa. And in July, there will be northbound vehicles going to the GBA. Will AVs do the same in the future? And this has to do with the regulations on both sides. And this is an issue that we should face up to. I suggest the administration should consider cross-boundary AV regulations and also the compatibility of regulations between the two places so that we can connect ourselves with the GBA. Now, we are lagging behind in the development of AVs from the mainland and the international world. I hope that the amendment will provide a very good environment for testing and trials of AVs. I so speak. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. Madam Deputy, AVs means vehicles retrofitted with autonomous systems, so there is no need for a natural driver to run it. These are new transport modes. It can help reduce car accidents arising from human errors. It can enhance road safety, optimize the use of limited road space. Different countries, including cities in the mainland, are actively conducting technology research, and they are also conducting road tests. But Hong Kong is still at the beginning stage. In 12 December 2020, the Smart City Blueprint 2.0 was issued, and also mentioned about vehicle to everything technology and the relevant development. And a vision has been set for AV's trial on roads. Right now, the AVs are governed by the CAP 374 and the subsidiary legislation under it. It governs mainly conventional vehicles, and it assumes that at any time there should be a natural person on the vehicle. Since 2017, the Transport Department has been issuing movement permits in accordance with the Road Traffic Registration and Licensing of Vehicles Regulations CAP 374 to facilitate AV trials. But then these were issued only to license, which are not licensed and not normally used on roads. To further meet the needs of the development of AVs in Hong Kong, Hong Kong must move ahead with the times and come up with the regulatory mechanism or framework as soon as possible to dovetail with the fast developing AV technology. We must promote the test and use of AVs in an orderly and safe manner. I must declare that I am a board member of the AA Hong Kong, and within the Hong Kong airport, there are different types of automatic vehicles running. And very soon, there will be AVs taking passengers from the Hong Kong boundary crossing facilities to the airport, and hopefully the service will be extended to the new Tongchong town center. The bill aims to amend the road traffic ordinance to facilitate the use and trials of AVs in Hong Kong. There should be a flexible framework, and we should also be testing the technology concerned. It will also empower the Secretary for Transport and Logistics to make certain regulations. The AVs, the administration rather, will introduce a regulatory framework for use of AVs. And the bill sets out that any individuals or organizations who would like to test and use AVs in Hong Kong should do it in a pilot scheme, and a pilot license should be obtained, and every vehicle will be issued with an AV certificate, and the STL is empowered to make a pilot regulation to govern AVs. And the pilot regulation is a piece of subsidiary legislation, and that will be subject to a negative vetting process. And the Commissioner for Transport is also empowered to issue or compile code of practice, and it will also be issuing on the website of the TD this application notices to allow greater flexibility for trial and use of AV, so that they will not be subject to existing regulations. The bill was introduced to the electoral on the 14th of December 2022, and a Bills Committee was set up. I'm a member of the Bills Committee, and the BC supports the amendment of the regulation so that a regulatory or pragmatic regulatory mechanism be drawn up. Since 2017, we started the trial of AVs, and in 2019, a $100 million Smart Transport Fund has been established to support the development of new vehicles, and the approved projects include the trial and use of AVs and V2X technology. But while we are lagging behind Shenzhen and Shanghai in terms of our AV technology, for these other cities, they are actually having AVs carrying passengers, and tests are going on. And members note that the administration has taken reference from Canada, Australia, Singapore, and their relevant regulations, but it doesn't say categorically that the mainland regulations have been taken into account. I'm very concerned about this. I believe that we should collaborate and exchange with the mainland when it comes to AV development. In the GBA, where we should promote together the VT2X and AV technology in the GBA together with mainland cities. Now, for the backup operator, may only operate of the AV when needed, and maybe one backup operator will be operating multiple vehicles, and also multiple backup operators may be operating many AVs on a shift or rotation basis. So in case of accidents, how should liabilities be ascertained? The administration said that the AVs will operate in a way different than that of conventional vehicles, but those operating AVs should also shoulder liabilities similar to those under the conventional vehicle scenario. And the bill also sets that the pilot regulation also says that the interpretation can be made to the definition driver, and the STL will be empowered to enact or make interpreted provisions and to disapply certain legal provisions in certain scenarios. And the Commission for Transport is also empowered to issue application notices on pilot matter. The administration explained that since AV technology develops in leaps and bounds, it is difficult to codify all the details in statute law. So through such empowerment arrangements, then a flexible regulatory mechanism can be put in place, and that can facilitate the study and trial of AVs and to help assess the use of the AV technology. I think this is a pragmatic and balanced approach. And the Bills Committee doesn't object to the resumption of second reading debate here. And we notice that the Secretary will move amendments in the reading to respond to members' questions. And that clarification will be made to the C of T's power to make this application notices. Now we are trying to come up with a flexible regulatory regime. I think this is an important stride that we're making. And going forward, the government should adopt a multi-pronged approach and be mindful about the latest trends in the AV technology and try to promote the further use of trial and of technology in AV, and a clear roadmap should be drawn up. And the INT fund and the Smart Transport Fund should be mobilized to support research and development into AV technology. We should strengthen our collaboration with the mainland authorities, including 5G technology, big data analytics, and V2X technology, and other laws and regulations and standards in relation to AVs. We should strive to connect ourselves with the mainland in terms of B2X technology and AV technology. I so submit.
Mr. Lam Chun Sing, thank you, Madam Deputy. I'd like to speak on the Road Traffic Amendment Autonomous Vehicles Bill 2022. There are views that this bill has come by too late. Last year in Chongqing, Wuhan, in August, the first batch of autonomous driving licenses were issued for AVs to provide commercial passenger carrying services in the country. In Shenzhen last year, the relevant framework was also promulgated to regulate autonomous vehicles in the city. I acknowledge the government's effort in tabling this bill. This is a milestone for popularization of smart transport in Hong Kong. This bill provides a framework. Many members during the deliberations of the bill asked about the details of the bill. For example, the legal liability of the operators in a specific setting, and also the requirements for the personnel involved, such as training and repair and maintenance. These questions have not been answered by the administration. The administration agreed to introduce a code of practice to address these issues. I hope that this can be done as soon as possible to promote the development of AV technologies in Hong Kong. The bill empowers the Secretary to make pilot regulation on AVs, including providing definition on the word driver of an AV. Specifically, the Commissioner is empowered by administrative means to issue these application notices. This is a technical point. But I do hope that when the Commissioner exercises his power, he can first consult the trade or listen to the views of panel members when he makes a report on a regular basis. For example, at the moment, under the law, only 4,350 PLB licenses are issued. In the future, if the Commissioner issues more PLB licenses for AVs to provide this service, will this cause an impact on the PLB trade? Will it be possible to strike a balance? When exercising his power, the Commissioner should liaise closely with the trade. Another point is, for AV operator or driver inside near the AV or at the control room, when the AV is in operation, he should also be held liable in the event of accidents. According to the Employees' Compensation Ordinance, when there is an accident, the employee, that is the operator, can be compensated. But the employer should also, as far as practicable, ensure occupational safety of an employee under the same piece of legislation. Now, this ordinance covers the majority of workplaces except this scenario under the road traffic ordinance, and that is the driver's seat. Now, in relation to the OSH display regulation, it does not cover the situation of a control room of an AV. In other words, in the future, this AV operator may not be protected under the occupational safety and health legislation. The scenario has changed. The driver no longer sits inside the AV. Instead, he operates via a control room, and his job type is similar to a clerk in an office. So he deserves protection under the OSH legislation. But it is peculiar at the moment as this AV operator is not safeguarded by the OSH legislation. The government should review the situation. The government plans to introduce the use of an autonomous transportation system for the airport city link. Now, AV technologies is a global trend, but we're not sure about the pace of development. In the long term, there may be a lesser demand on transportation manpower. The government should conduct a manpower projection for the trade in the long term so as to help strike a balance between technological advancement and helping workers upgrade and transform the skills. Professor William Wong. Autonomous vehicles is nothing new. Yet Hong Kong is lagging behind in this area. Our country is a strong nation when it comes to car manufacturing. AVs have been put to extensive use. In Shenzhen, AVs can run on a commercial passenger carrying basis. In Guangzhou, there are AV buses running on the roads with high level of safety. And in the demonstration zone of another city, some AVs have been running on the roads for more than a year. There are also AV trials being conducted in Hong Kong, mostly in the restricted area of the airport. We have forklift trucks, we have other kinds of autonomous vehicles. Last week, an autonomous bus started running within the area. It runs round the clock to carry employees within the area. The other more well-known trial is the autonomous bus running in Science Park. Again, these buses carry employees within the park. Through this bill, the government has formulated a framework for the trial and application of AVs on a pilot basis. It is not a comprehensive legislation allowing the use of AVs, whereas in Shenzhen, last year, the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone Smart Vehicle Regulation was promulgated. From trial, use, management, registration of AVs, there are detailed provisions on these things. There are also provisions on the handling of accidents. This all-encompassing legislation can help drive the development of AVs as well as the relevant industries. The Hong Kong SAR government has the Innovation Technology Fund and the Smart Transport Fund. These two funds provide funding support to research projects. Apart from funding support, however, we need to allow trials to take place in more places, in particular in the commercialization and trial process. The I&T Cooperation Zone in Lok Ma Chau Loop will be commissioned in phases starting 2024. There will be a flexible use of the sites therein. For example, in San Tin Technopole, direct land grants may be given to tech companies. The government should take a proactive approach so as to attract more top-notch enterprises to come and develop AVs. We are an international city. We are at the best strategic location of connectivity with the mainland. This can help facilitate the flow of capital. We can also help raise funds for these companies. These are advantages that we enjoy and which we can use to attract top-notch enterprises. Next, if we want to allow extensive use of AVs, we need to improve the V2X technology so that AVs can collect data from big data, such as traffic condition, as well as data allowing vehicles to gauge the distance with the vehicles in front and behind. The V2X technology at the moment is at its early stage of development in Hong Kong. Astri has started a 9-month trial from the Science Park to Sha Tin Town Centre, covering 14 kilometers in length. The government should promote the development of V2X technology. The Transport Development also plans to publish the latest blueprint by 2025. I hope that in this blueprint, the government will attach sufficient importance to the development of V2X. Consideration should be given to aligning our standards with those in the GBA cities. There should be more communication and liaison with the relevant authorities and organizations to enhance connectivity in the Greater Bay Area. Madam Deputy, if this bill is passed today, it will turn a new chapter for the development of AVs in Hong Kong. However, the government should make a joint effort with the trade so as to sustain the development of AVs so that in the end of the day we can create an industrial chain and bring new impetus for development in Hong Kong. I support the bill.
Mr. Tony J. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Madam Deputy, I rise to speak in support of the Road Traffic Amendment Autonomous Vehicles Bill 2022. This is to provide for a regulatory framework for autonomous driving and autonomous vehicle for these to be rolled out in Hong Kong. And this will allow the autonomous vehicles to be running on the road and to safeguard the safety of the road users. Should accident happen, there will be proper criminal and civil liabilities. Talking about autonomous driving, we think of the replacement of human drivers. In fact, many motorists would agree that the car parks are so narrow in Hong Kong, and it would be difficult for a parked vehicle for the doors to be opened. In fact, many new vehicles are fitted with the formula for autonomous driving, and parking will not present any problems. However, under the existing legislation, the vehicles in Hong Kong must be manned by a human being. Even for such safety or safe technology, we are not able to benefit from it. As Hong Kong's population is aging, autonomous driving would be of assistance to the elderly drivers, and it is a safeguard against accidents. For those who are in poor physical condition but would still like to get behind the wheels and go out and about, this kind of autonomous driving would certainly be helpful to them. So it is providing safeguard for public safety. It is also helping people with their mobility. I think it is time for us to introduce autonomous vehicles in Hong Kong. In fact, in many parts of the world, like many cities in the mainland, have already developed autonomous driving to a really sophisticated level. We must be aware that given the road conditions and the driving habits in Hong Kong, it is different from other parts of the world. So when we introduce the technology and the vehicles, we have to conduct road tests to make sure that the autonomous driving technology would be suited to Hong Kong. And we are concerned about the safety. We have to make sure that the systems will be too sophisticated, like when the vehicles are approaching the tunnel portal because of the safety reason. The vehicles might be stopping there for safety's sake, and this will in turn cause congestion. The government departments responsible for vetting this technology would set too much store by safety, and they are throwing obstacles in the testing and use of the technology. And they would insist on repeated tests that have already been undertaken in other parts of the world, and this is really impeding the progress of the introduction of autonomous vehicles in Hong Kong. So I, like other members, am in support of this legislation, and I am really hopeful for this technology. The legislation should not be too rigid so that we can respond to the evolvement of the autonomous driving technology. And in the bill, it provides for a regulatory framework, and all the details are not specified, and they're left to the Secretary and the Commissioner for Transport to decide and to approve, and this is filling us with concerns. Now, what is of concern to us is that the Secretary and the Commissioner would be, like previous officials, attached too much to safety and resist innovation. They are just there to monitor the development. They should also become the facilitator, because otherwise we'll be behind the curves and we will not be able to benefit the members of the public. The innovation in technology is really lagging behind. The government adopts the mentality that the less they do, the less they do wrong. In fact, there are a lot of technology in the mainland, and there is very much a resistance to that because of this mentality. After 40 years of reform and opening up, the technological development in the mainland has reached really high level in many respects. And many Western countries, led by the US, are impeding the technological development in the mainland, and the production and R&D are being impeded. Hong Kong has returned to the mainland, to the motherland for so many years, but still we see people like the air crew that is documented in the news. People tend to think that the mainland products are of a lower grade than those in other parts of the world. In fact, the tests on the autonomous vehicles cover many vehicles that are manufactured in the mainland. In formulating the regulatory framework, the government has taken reference from the US, Australia, and Singapore. They haven't taken into account the regulation and the standards in the mainland. According to the administration, there is a difference between the regulatory system between Hong Kong and the mainland. And in formulating the regulation and in issuing the certificate the government said that they would make reference to the mainland standards, and the test experiences in Hong Kong would be taken into account, and there will be no repeat tests that will be required. And there would be a promotion of V2X connectivity between Hong Kong and the GBA. I hope the government will be true to their words instead of saying one thing and does another. I hope that after the third reading, we would soon be able to enjoy the benefit of autonomous parking, and that would remove the worry that the car doors cannot be opened after a car is parked in the car park. With these words, I support the second and third reading and also all the CSAs of the bill. Mr. Yim Kong, Madam Deputy, as a member of the Bills Committee, I am very concerned about the development of autonomous driving. Autonomous driving is the new trend in the world, and this would effectively minimize traffic accidents arising from human errors. This will also improve mobility, and this is part and parcel of a smart city. The legislation for autonomous driving would facilitate the development there. There are 6 countries, including the US, Germany, Japan, the mainland, Singapore, Australia, that have already introduced legislation for autonomous vehicles. In August 2020, the first autonomous vehicle legislation has been put in place. In Shenzhen, they have put in place the autonomous driving legislation, and they have formulated the registration, the liability for traffic accidents, and so on. All these have been put in place. In July 2022, the State Council has introduced the 14th five-year plan regarding autonomous driving. They have introduced the study on V2X connectivity and also all the regulations in this regard. They are looking into the safety, the safe regulation, and also the repair and maintenance technology. In the mainland, autonomous driving legislation has been on the agenda. In this bill, we have adopted a lot of views of the trade, and this is positive development in the way of autonomous driving. There are loose ends to be tied up, and the legislation has to be evolving with the times, and I'd like to state my concerns here. First, we should adopt the Beidou navigation system. This is the mainland technology. This is a really sophisticated technology. In particular, when it comes to autonomous driving, this would become the trend of the GBA development. The positioning system should be on the basis of the Beidou positioning system. And we should also adopt the mainland-based cloud system. Second, we have to clear up the liability in relation to accidents arising from autonomous driving. And all the producers, the suppliers, their liability should be clarified, and that would enable us to pursue the liability in relation to insurance. For semi-autonomous and autonomous vehicles, I think we have to make sure that should accidents happen, who should be held responsible for them. Third, we should have regulation regarding the public safety. The government should put in place a regulation to regulate autonomous driving, and also the storage and the use of recorded data. Fourth, for autonomous vehicles, there should be clear identification. There should be clear sound identification system. In order to assuage public concerns about autonomous driving, the autonomous vehicles should be given an easily identifiable number plate and also sound system, so that people would be able to make a timely response. Fifth, for autonomous vehicles, there should be a clear regulation regarding cross-boundary vehicles. The cross-boundary travel of autonomous vehicles is something that we should bear in mind in future. We have to consider all the regulation regarding autonomous vehicles being used across the boundary. This would be part of the smart city development in the GBA. 6, for certain zones like the airport and the container terminal, we have to bear in mind the safety. There should be automation of the port and the airport in the use of autonomous driving. With these words, I support the bill.
Mr. Shanghai Long. Thank you, Madam Deputy. First declaration of interest. I am a consultant of an AI company. We take part in a number of trials concerning AI and AVs. So I speak in support of the amendment bill so that the administration can take forward the development of AVs in a flexible manner. Earlier on, I was also a member of the Bills Committee, and I believe other colleagues have also talked about the details of our exchange with the administration. I will not repeat those. I believe that everyone agreed that through the development of AV technology, we can have fewer drivers who are oftentimes stuck in very small compartment. We can also enhance road safety, reduce the number of accidents. We can also facilitate the development of AVs in the future. Now, the administration's paper focuses on overseas examples. I hope that more attention can be paid to what's happening in mainland cities and how their trial with AVs go. So I'm going to talk about the subject from a commercial perspective. I hope that the administration should focus on how it should issue commercial AV vehicles. I believe that we should leverage on market forces to bring AVs actually to the public roads. Now, I know that the government has issued commercial taxi and commercial truck vehicles. I have a few suggestions for the administration. First, when vetting projects, I believe that the administration should approve projects involving a fleet instead of a single vehicle, because a fleet will be conducive to the development of AV development in Hong Kong, and more data can be collected that way. So the government should accord priority to projects involving fleets. And then we should also step up public education. We should invite members of the public to be passengers on AVs. So at least should be trials on 5 locations in Hong Kong. Suitable locations include the airport, Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, and the Science Park, CUHK, West Kowloon Cultural District, Tai Kung Shing, etc. I hope that we should leverage the advantages under one country, two systems principle and try out the different projects, and we should ascertain the liabilities of the different parties in the team. say for L3, the liability of how the liability is assigned differs between the mainland and overseas countries. So I hope that the government can make breakthroughs in this area. Should we be just holding the operator accountable only? That will not be conducive to the development of their technology. I think we should try to break new grounds in that area, and that is also instrumental in putting wider use of AVs in Hong Kong. I so submit in support of the bill.
If not, I now call upon the Secretary for Transport and Logistics to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Secretary. Madam Deputy, I sincerely thank Mr. Frankie Yik, Chairman of the Bills Committee, and other members of the committee, as well as the Electrical Secretariat, for their hard work and support, which enabled the Road Traffic Amendment Autonomous Vehicles Bill 2022 to be scrutinized smoothly and expeditiously. I also like to thank members who have spoken for their valuable comments, which will be considered. As the global technological development enters a new era, autonomous vehicles, or AV technology, has seen rapid development in recent years and is being tested on the road around the world. The AV technology can not only enhance road safety and make the best use of limited road space, but also reduce the number of accidents caused by human error. The government has been promoting smart mobility and is committed to resorting to innovation and technology to bring about safer, greener, efficient, and more convenient mobility experience to the public. In the Hong Kong Smart City Blueprint 2.0, published in December 2020, one of the initiatives is to tie in with the vehicle to everything and AV technology to set a vision of testing and using AVs on Hong Kong roads. To enable testing and use of AVs on Hong Kong roads for the carriage of passengers and also for mass transit, while safeguarding road safety, the bill seeks to amend the Road Traffic Ordinance to empower the Secretary for Transport and Logistics to make subsidiary legislation, i.e. the pilot regulation, to put in place a regulatory regime for the testing and use of AVs. The government has made reference to the mainland experiences and that of other regions in proposing the bill. The regulatory framework will be in line with national and international standards. In the course of the scrutiny, members of the trade generally supported the government's proposal to provide a more flexible regulatory framework for AVs. They also expressed valuable comments on the standards and long-term development of the regulatory framework of AV technology. Members' main concerns are twofold. First, the approval of pilot license and the AV certificate, and two, the legal liability and insurance issues. First of all, regarding the license and certificate, under the bill, the AV owners must apply to the TD for a pilot license and an AV certificate for each autonomous vehicle. Once approval is given, the applicant can register the vehicle and obtain a license. Like ordinary motor vehicles, AVs will be subject to the Road Traffic Ordinance and its subsidiary legislation. In addition, the proposed pilot regulation will clearly stipulate the requirements like the renewal, variation, suspension, or cancellation of the pilot license and certificate. If an AV is used to carry passengers for reward, the relevant passenger service license is required. It has to be registered under the corresponding class of vehicle. In considering the application, the TD would have regard to the impact on public transport, like the route, the fare, the landscape of the trade, and also the members of the public. In relation to the second point about liability and insurance, as the existing vehicle registration and licensing system will apply equally to AVs, the liability and the registered owner and the licensee, including the requirement for insurance, will also apply to the AVs. The proposed pilot regulation will also stipulate the requirements like insurance policies, repair or maintenance, etc. For example, it will require the installation of a data recording device. If accidents occur, the relevant data can facilitate investigation and shed light on the responsibilities concerned. In response to members' suggestion, the government has met the Hong Kong Federation of Insurers and the Automobile and Light Bus Trades to brief them on the bill and the insurance arrangements, and to further consult them on their views. The industry is generally supportive of the bill. The government will maintain liaison with the trade and make available all the relevant data for their reference. Having regard to members' views on the pilot regulation, we intend to set the commencement date of the pilot regulation after the negative vetting period in order to allow members sufficient time to scrutinize the pilot regulation. Madam Deputy, under the proposed framework, we will draw on more experience in the testing and use of AVs in Hong Kong and continue to maintain communication with the trade. We will also closely monitor the autonomous driving technologies and regulatory industry to make sure that the regulatory framework keeps pace with the times. We will also closely monitor the development in the mainland and discuss with the mainland the cross-boundary autonomous vehicles. Many of the vehicles are manufactured and developed by the mainland. We consulted the Transport Panel in July 2022 and received general support from members. The proposals in the bill have taken into account the views of members and the trade. I urge members to support the bill and the technical and textual amendments that I move later on, so that the government can implement the new regulatory framework for AVs as soon as possible and remove the barriers to the long-term development of AV technology and allow AVs to be extensively tested and used on Hong Kong roads. It will provide greater impetus to the development of smart city in Hong Kong. President So, I speak.
I now put the question to you that the Road Traffic Amendment Autonomous Vehicles Bill 2022 be read the second time. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Road Traffic Amendment Autonomous Vehicles Bill 2022. This council now becomes a committee of the whole council to consider the Road Traffic Amendment